Here we are, folks, on the morning of Tuesday, 3/17/2020. We've had 2 full weeks of tumultuous, unprecedented price action. Super high volume, super high volatility, massive sell off in the market day after day. 1,000 point, 2,000 point drops in the Dow per day. So, mass hysteria, mayhem, and chaos in the markets. We have incredible price distances on these impulse moves, and the issue here is the level of volatility around the point of our entry. The ranges are so great, it's making the entry points and the stop placement extra tricky, right? And the market is moving extra quick, so you have to be really on your game to be able to play this market. Now, that being said, it's possible to profit in this market, although you have to trade very carefully, very precisely, very gingerly, and not push it too hard. You have to play a little bit off of luck of the draw. Try your best, try to hook something, and if you get one or two to pan out, call it a day and lock those profits in. This market is too crazy. It's very easy to just give it all back. If you overtrade this market, you can wreck your account. Trust me. So, you know, don't be like a kid in a candy store and see all this great movement and say, "Ooh, I'm going to make a killing." No, the market could kill you during these times. Now, don't want to scare you, but I want to give you the reality. You have to play this market very carefully. Now, what we're looking at here is our 20-second trigger chart that we use with the Power Emini Micro Scalper algo. And we have the dynamic trigger range, and this is the Ninja 7. You can see this is the auto-generated dynamic trigger range right on the chart. It shows a midline. And then I have the blue 18 SMA, which we use as kind of a visual guideline to help us. And then we're looking for 2-bar combinations that break out. Now, the very first alert comes at 10 minutes after the open, so that's 9:40 East Coast time. That would be 6:40 West Coast time. And so the green vertical line there, that would be the opening price line. I just put that on there to give you a reference point. And so in this market especially, it's probably a good idea to let that first 10 minutes go by, because the first 10 minutes with the limit downs and the limit up halts has just made this market crazy at the open, right? So nothing wrong with letting that first 10-minute period go by and just wait for the very first dynamic trigger range to be generated within the open session. That makes sense? That's going to help you out a little bit there. Okay, so here's the 9:40 dynamic trigger range alert. That's 10 minutes after market open, and you can see we're getting our first 20-second bar to poke out of the bottom of the range. So we're going to be looking for, remember, 2-bar combinations on the 20-second time frame. Okay, so you can see how we've got 3 bars now that have poked below. So we've got kind of a secondary support level there that has been created. So I'm going to go ahead and put a horizontal line just below those lows there. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting that line below the most recent 2 penetration bars. All right, and so any sudden move, now you notice our 18 period SMA, the blue line, is sloping down, and that is looking like it's going to cross right down through the dynamic trigger range, and then we're getting downward pressure off that moving average. So this is where we would be looking to see if we're going to get a trend continuation to the downside. So here we go, we're looking to break. Now, this is our trigger. All right, we can go ahead and take that entry, and what we're going to do is We want to these are very wide ATRs right now, okay? Very wide ranges. And so we want to give things a little bit of wiggle room. We're just going to get knocked out. And it's therefore we have to go for bigger targets. So I've got a 12 and a half point target there on the ES. Now remember, about 50% of trades are going to hem haw around your point of entry for a little bit before they take off. So you got to give these trades a little bit of wiggle room. And so what I did is notice where the stop is. It's 3/4 back up on the long range bar, right? That's the area of the Alamo. So what we're doing now is in my methodology, I teach you, wait for 3 20-second bars to go to break even. But this is such a fast market, you can go to break even quicker, and especially if price starts going towards your target. So here we are just about ready to hit a 12 and a half point ES target. Okay, so this is a quick scalp, like right off the first dynamic trigger range alert generated after the market opened. Now this happened very quickly, and so we've still got 17 minutes or so left on this dynamic trigger range. So let's watch it again and see how price behaves. There might be a second entry. All right, so after getting kind of a knee-jerk reaction back, a little short squeeze there, back into the dynamic trigger range, we actually poked out of the top of it real quickly, 1 bar. We're coming back, and your reference point is two things: the dynamic trigger range levels, right, and then that 18 period SMA, the blue line. So notice how price is dropping back below, attempting to drop back below the dynamic trigger range as well as that 18 period. So again, we want to look for 2 bar combos at or around the edges of the dynamic trigger range. The algo is purposely designed and calibrated that way so that you at home getting these alert levels have a visual reference point to be able to play entry. What we do here with this now, notice we got our first penetration bar back down below is a long range bar, right? Big body. And so the play there is we like to see a little narrow range bar as the second bar. That gives us an entry point and then a really tight stop, because then we can protect just on the other side of that narrow range bar. So I'm going to go ahead and place the horizontal support line there. That's my little trigger line now. All right. You see how this gives us a lot more micro precision, and we can know exactly where to take the entry. Boom, we can get in. And then we want to keep that stop just outside that second bar there, the narrow range bar. That's kind of a doji pin bar also, right? That's a good bar, meaningful bar. Okay, so now our very first goal is just let's get this sucker to break even and get out of harm's way. Getting a nice strong push in our favor. We gotta let price, remember, price kind of will a lot of times go right back to your entry. That's been called the kiss goodbye before things take off. So all right, so now as soon as I see like some of those highs there, notice how we got narrow range bars and we got the highs. I'm going to drag down and protect tighter, right? There's no reason to watch these narrow range bars with the same high and then turn around and watch it go right back against you. So you can protect those highs. And again, we're moving so quickly in these markets right now. These ATRs are insane that you want to your trade management maybe a little bit more aggressively. You don't always have to wait for like the 3 bar trick, right? You can here we're getting close to the target. There's no reason to give anything back, so let's get to break even. And even protecting like half of these trades is still giving you quite a few points, capturing quite a few points. Once you get to break even, you can relax and let the price do what it's going to do. Now we're getting a push all the way back towards, let's see if we get stopped out here. These are wild markets, wild times, and capital preservation is your first priority. And there we hit the target, 12 and a half point ES target. All right, so that was two scalp trades, total of 25 points off of just the first dynamic trigger range alert, if you knew where to take your entries. Okay, we got the 10 o'clock dynamic trigger range alert. That's the second micro alert given after the market opens. And you can see the 18 period SMA is sloping down, and we're getting a penetration to the downside. Now, I want to show you something here. I've got an ATR, it's a simple indicator down at the bottom. And what you want to do is you want to set that to an ATR of 1, not a 14 or 8, or so that you can see the ranges on each individual 20-second bar. And then you change the sine wave line to a bar type, and so you can see. So I went ahead and plotted a horizontal line right at 6 points. So you can see these individual 20-second bars on the ES moving up over 10 points. Here's one that's 13-point range on just a 20-second bar. So you can see these ranges in this market are just absolutely extreme. Okay, so this is a great thing to put on your 20-second chart down at the bottom. You can keep an eye on, you can see those previous bars there, those narrower range bars were, below the 6-point range per bar. But that's still extreme on a 20-second time frame. Okay, so you notice we get this big long range bar, and then so the 2-bar combo is we would look for a little narrow range bar here, and we'd play off of the low for the entry and use that high as a stop area. Now here we're just getting a kind of a short squeeze bounce back into resistance. So our reference point is that we want to keep an eye on any 2-bar combinations. Now, so here's a great little 2-bar combination to play off of. Notice we've got the 2 little doji bars. They're narrow range, and they're actually pin bars weighted with the bodies to the downside, which is kind of a bearish setup there. And so we've got a great little setup here because we want to watch for a break to the downside now. And we would take the entry below the low of those 2 lows, and then we would have our stop outside the range of the highs of those 2 bars, and which is back inside the dynamic trigger range, right? That's our naturally computed zone of play, right? So perfect little setup here, and so all we do now is we'd wait for a price trigger. So let's see what happens here. Alright, so we're kind of getting pushed back. So we're getting squeezed back into the dynamic trigger range, and now we're going back up to touch that 18 period. So that particular 2-bar setup is kind of null and void. Now we got 3 lows that match. So if we come back down, that's still valid. But here's the thing. Anytime price pushes back up into the dynamic trigger range and goes past the 18 period SMA as well as past the midpoint, you can see I've got a very faint gray dotted line in the middle there. And so anytime you go past that zone, consider that a reset for the pattern that you were going to try to play, right? So we'd need to come down and we'd look for a new 2-bar combo after that. All right. So at this point, price can 18 SMA is still sloping down. The general momentum you can see kind of sloping down. So this is a brand new trigger range, and so we could continue to the downside. Now, reversals happen, so we could consolidate in here for a while, and then price could make a move to the upside, and then in which case we go ahead and look for our long entry. So let's go ahead and see how this plays out. All right, looks like we might want to test the lows there again. Maybe not. All right, so we're popping out to the top here. Got some wacky price action. Now this is sped up a little bit because we don't want to wait around all day for the video. Okay, now let me show you something here. This little setup that we're getting. Anytime that you see these pin bars, you see that one pin bar, and look at where the body is. It's weighted up towards the top. All right, so that's a doji bar, meaning that it closed where it opened. That signifies balance. It's a little bit narrower range than the previous bars, but the main thing is that the body is so narrow, right? The towel there points down and it's sitting right above the 18 SMA, which is starting to slope up. Okay, these are all little subtle things, but they're pretty obvious. This stuff repeats itself over and over. Now notice our second bar there is poking up outside of the top of the dynamic trigger range, and here is our narrow range bar. So the previous bar, the pin bar, after the poke out and then the pullback, that pin bar represents stability, balance, and the body being up towards the top is kind of pointing the direction of the move. And then the second bar, it provides us with our narrow range bar to work off of, right? So what I'll do is I got my horizontal line, drag it up, and we're going to play off of that high, and then I can protect the low right below. You see how that's a logical range to work off of. All right, so we're getting a quick break, and again, these ranges are really wide, so I even have to drag my stop down a little bit. All right, and so you can see there's the setup. And now our very first goal is getting to break even. And you can see these moves have been going really quick. And we don't have to follow the 3-bar rule. You can get to break even much quicker on some of these moves. Anytime that you see price racing up towards that target, get to break even. These are 12.5-point targets on the ES. Then we want to watch to protect as much of this move as possible, because these markets are so erratic that prices are moving quickly in our favor, and then they can move quickly back against you. Right? So notice how we're getting up real close to that target now. So I'm gonna tighten this stop here any second and protect. There we go. So now that we got that low, we're going to go ahead and get right below there. And boom. Very erratic market, so protect what you can get. Try to go for these big targets, but protect what you can get. Now down the road here, after that trade we just took, we're getting trend continuation and strong move out of this dynamic trigger range. And so we still have time left on the clock with this particular alert. So if we want to look for a second kind of a setup here, we want to look for anytime price gets close to the 18 period. Now notice here is another one of our pin bars. That's the doji pin bar, and this bar is sitting now. The body is weighted towards the low, however, right above that 18 period SMA, and this is where we typically bounce off of. So the high of that pin bar, and then we want to watch this very next bar as well. So we got a really nice upward slope on the 18 period. We got a pullback, you can see, and we got that pin bar and then a narrow range bar. So we're going to go ahead and watch those levels. You see we actually have 3 highs around the same level. Alright, so let's see how this plays out, and as we get the break we want to take that entry. Boom, we're in. Now again, in this market we have to probably pull your stops out a little bit. This is a tough market to play because you've got to use the right stops, but they're got to be wider than normal. Alright, so you can see how this, a little bit later here, this trade blasted off and is racing towards the target. So I'm just trailing right up underneath each bar. to protect what I can get. So again, that's a 12.5 point ES target, and I'm just protected 7 points there on that move. And so you can see how you could pull two entries off of the same price impulse move that breaks out of the dynamic trigger ranges. So this is our alert software, a state-of-the-art alert software. It's desktop alert software. It's platform independent, which means it doesn't matter if you're in TradeStation, Thinkorswim, Ninja, it doesn't matter. You can install this. It's its own software. You're going to get all the alerts, targets, trailing stops, that kind of thing. All right, and so, sign up today, start trading tomorrow. It's Ninja Trader users get the on-chart companion indicator at no extra charge, included with the regular membership.